Well, Josh, this is it. This is the last movie before we jump to the next part, the next generation, a new adventure. But we had to finish this one with the Voyage Home, which oddly enough didn't really feel like a voyage home. It kind of felt like just a side quest to wrap up a trilogy. You know what I mean?
hmm
I mean, how do you feel about this? Possibly after a second watch or letting it sit after your first watch.
Yeah, I did rewatch it, and I do think that I feel a little bit more uh, understanding of the trilogy narrative after we watched the movie in our immediate discussion. I said that I don't get how it's a trilogy at all. I didn't feel like it was related at all. After rewatching it, I think that just in the sense of like what happens in the movie where it does finally close up those storylines. Like Spock in the movie still is trying to get back to being normal Spock. The Enterprise is gone, and they get that at the end. They have these looming charges over their head the whole time from the previous movie, and they're cleared of the charges essentially at the end of the film. So it does wrap it up per se. It is still connected in that way, but yeah, overall, it really does feel like just a side quest is a great way to put it. Yeah, it just feels like, hey, let's just make a comedy. But I really liked it.
Yeah, I did too. But you know what's funny? Before the time travel story was approved, the movie was going to be mainly like Kirk being court-martialed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and do you know who was supposed to like come in to speak?
Was it Harry Mudd?
It was Harry Mudd.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So after hearing that, then after the time travel thing, they just had, they scrapped it, just having it in the beginning and the middle, automatically down two letters.
Damn. They
Wouldn't
should,
that be amazing if he like to wrap up this trilogy, like a classic old villain comes in and maybe speaks on Kirk's behalf, like what an arc for him.
correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's like the only side character that does return in the series. Am I right?
Besides Khan.
No, I'm saying like in the TV show series. Like Harry Mudd is the only person. He had 2 episodes in the
Oh,
original series,
and yeah,
and then he even comes back in the animated series too. So I was surprised that like at no point they did anything to include him. So that is nice to know that they did think about it at least.
one thing I appreciate about all the movies is I think we talked about this briefly. Like each one is its own genre. Because some sequels are just the same thing but more. You're like, okay, or the exact same thing. Like you watch RoboCop and RoboCop 2, they're like the same movie.
Yeah, Wayne's World 2. Like, let's just change the plot a little bit, but it's the same bits,
Yeah.
it's the same gags.
Or like Aliens. Well, now there's more of them. There's not just one. You know what I mean?
I gotta disagree with you on that one. I think those are completely different
Oh, that
movies.
is true. First
Yeah.
Aliens more like a horror thriller, and two is like an action movie.
Yeah, 2 was like, let's just go fucking hire James Cameron. It's like just, I love both movies though, but
Yeah.
it's almost kind of perfect in that way. These 4 movies, how they're each like their own thing. I think 2 and 3 are the most connected, but even those two are completely different because I wouldn't call 2 really an adventure movie, and I wouldn't call 3 an action movie. So like those are completely different, even though they're connected.
You know what my favorite color used to be? Red.
Oh,
You
really?
know why it's not red anymore? Because these goddamn uniforms. I'm sick of them. I'm so tired of this solid red. It's driving me nuts.
That's why it was cool when they were just like in their civilian clothes and search for Spock, and they are still in this one as
Yeah, yeah.
well.
Shouldn't we be celebrating like our differences, like all these cultures coming together? Nope, just solid red.
Yeah, not for the movies.
Not for the movies.
What did you think about how there really is no like antagonist or villain in the movie? You could say it's this probe that's communicating with the whales because it's, threatening life on Earth, but the crew doesn't really face like a main villain. Like they time travel, and their obstacle is that they have to get these whales, and there's challenges in doing that. But it's really just traveling with the crew the entire time. It's not like an opposing villain trying to kill them or whatever.
Yeah, there's no villain trying to oppose him. The villain is the people of today and how we need to be better. It's like when she's just showing the whale video, like, look at this. It's like, oh God, I'm not the one doing it. I'm sorry. I know it's a problem. Like it's like I don't know. It's in your face. Like look at what they're doing.
I thought there was like that one scene, and then it just like wasn't in the movie at all after that. I actually was surprised it wasn't more like, at the end, a big speech like Kirk we must learn from the humans and not kill, like, it was just like this one scene of like, hey, look how terrible this is. All right, anyway.
Maybe because it's how graphic it was, it's just at the
Yeah.
forefront of my brain. Because just seeing like them actually cutting like the fins and shit, and
Oh, it
like
was, yeah, they didn't shy away.
yeah, I couldn't look. I was getting sick.
I did hear though that the movie actually was successful in raising awareness about this though, and that uh, we don't really kill humpback whales anymore. Not only because of this movie, but I guess that in the '80s when this came out, it did actually do a really good job of that from the research that I saw.
Mm.
So that is interesting. Movies today try to do stuff all the time. When's the last time one was actually successful?
Is this the funniest Star Trek movie? Do you think so far?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a few great lines in all the movies comedy wise, but I think this one was like the most consistently funny. I mean, the whole '80s part of the movie is just joke and after joke after joke, and there aren't many that I can remember that I thought fell completely flat. Did you?
Yeah, there's a couple where I'm like, I don't know, like Chekhov's whole thing, where like he's not Spock, you know what I mean? He understands what metaphors and things are, or at least he should. Like I don't know how different they'd be 300 years later.
You play games with me, mister, and you're through. I am? May I go now?
But I heard like after like the events of the past two movies, like Leonard Nimoy wanted to like lighten it up.
Do you think that was a good choice?
I think so. It makes it different because there's plenty of TOS episodes like that too, where it's more fun and like
Yeah.
more like fish out of water stuff. And I think they did it pretty well here.
Yeah, like Shorely, for example, great episode, just silly, really. Yeah, for sure. So it only makes sense that there was a movie like that. And I said, it feels of the four movies, I could understand the argument that this feels most similar to TOS because of that reason, because it just feels like a side quest. And every single episode of TOS was a side quest. Like it all was just random stuff happening.
Yeah, true. It's just weird, like with the continuity, you're expecting like a finale to this trilogy, but like it's just a side quest that ends up ending at the end.
And I think that's also not fully the fault of the movie. I think it might also be, at least for me, the fault of you guys, but the fault of just reading comments and having so many people saying 2 to 4 is a trilogy, 2 through 4 is a trilogy,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
trilogy, and so kind of getting beaten into your head, and us probably thinking of like modern day trilogies. So at least that affected me more to where at first I was expecting a huge a connected thing that threw me off, but now I'm a little more understanding of it on my second watch.
One of my favorite scenes where it's like the footage of Kirk comes up.
To fully understand the events on which I
Hold
report,
the image.
it is necessary to review.
Little things like that are like so realistic that I wish more movies had stuff like that. Because any other movie, hold the image, like perfect freeze frame at Kirk, looking like devious or something. So
Or the exact opposite, and they take it too far, like hold, I said hold, and they keep playing, and then you'll have to be like, they would go too far with it. It was just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a nice subtle little thing.
yes, I love those subtle little things that make it realistic. I love a reason for exposition or recapping what happened in the last movie, like double-sided purpose. Like they're showing the stuff that happened at the end of the last film for this court trial, but it also catches other people up, like other audience members coming in. Sarek the goat.
Great to see him again.
I can't believe how much he's in this, or like in these movies. You know what I mean?
It's shocking, truly. I mean, he must love Star Trek, or he must either love being in Star Trek, or just have great relationships with Leonard Nimoy, Gene Roddenberry, whoever is putting him in the stuff. Because again, just up there with Harry Mudd in terms of he was only in TOS once, but to come back in the animated series and in 2 of the movies, like that's pretty good.
Yeah, and he was one of the Klingons in the beginning of TMP, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been all the species, which is kind of cool.
And he was not character, but the actor was in multiple episodes of TOS. He was the Romulan in Balance of Terror. That was his first TOS role.
Yeah.
Which I always forget about because Sarek is such an amazing villain that I almost wish he wasn't that Romulan. Because it's like, I wish his only TOS impression was Spock's father, but it is cool that I guess he was the first actor to ever play a Romulan, Vulcan, and Klingon character. So that's cool for him. Great actor. I wonder if he did anything else that I would have if I go back and I'm like, oh, he's in this, I'll be interested to look at his IMDb.
Yeah, we probably should look at that.
And then the scene just following that with the computers.
Amazing scene.
Amanda, she was excellent. Awesome to see her back after almost 20 years not being related, to anything in Star Trek. Her scene was great. She's in one scene, but it was great.
Humans make illogical decisions.
They do indeed.
I would have loved to see her and Sarek together in some little scene. like to see how their relationship is. But we get two separate scenes with Spock and his dad and Spock and his mom, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I agree with you. Or even just like have her at the end, like standing there. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to sacrifice one of the best lines in the movie.
Do you have a message for your mother? Tell her I feel fine.
So as a whole, the time travel was not something that I was, spoiled about with this movie. I knew nothing about the movie. And when it first comes up and they decide that's what they were going to do, I did appreciate that it wasn't out of thin air. They had time traveled in the show. So it was something already previously set up in this universe. On top of that, I was genuinely surprised with how well all the time travel stuff worked out. Like, it was my favorite part of the movie, basically. The fish out of water stuff and we've only seen these characters in, their setting. Yeah, there were some time travel episodes, but they're like at one location and no one's there. Like, it's not like we see them integrate into the modern world. It could have been so bad. Like, it could have been so cringe, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and it just wasn't. I thought it all was done very well.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It was great. You know, like that one scene where it was Sulu and like two others, and they're walking in front of this big yellow page building. Watching, I'm like, oh, that's weird. But apparently there was a scene that was cut where that Asian woman was calling after a young Asian child named Hikaru, which is Sulu's name, and that kid was supposed to be Sulu's great something grandfather.
Wait.
Because they cut the scene because the little kid who was supposed to be playing like Sulu's ancestor wouldn't stop crying on the set because he wasn't like a professional actor. So I guess he was freaking out. So he ruined it. So they just had to cut the whole thing.
Oh my god. I mean, I'm kind of glad that wasn't in there. That sounds like it would have been way too on the nose.
Yeah.
This was like the first confirmation I feel like we've gotten in Star Trek that money does not exist in their time, because there were several references to money throughout TOS, the show. People would comment on our videos, oh, there's actually no money, in this time. And it's like, well, no one has ever said this. But in this movie, they finally do make reference to it.
It's a miracle these people ever got out of the 20th century.
They're still using money. We got to find something.
I think it's more referenced in TNG because I've heard that as well. But I think in TNG they really hammer it home, like, oh, we've eliminated the need for money because we've grown beyond that, which leads to one of the funniest scenes.
I'll give you $100.
Is that a lot?
Yeah. What do you think, though, do you think that was just done as a random thing for gags in this movie and they just decided to keep it moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good point because, there's nothing really in TOS that suggests that, money isn't a thing. Like, that'd be interesting. I'd love to, like, research that later if that was the reason why, because, like, oh, shit. In the Voyage Home, they said they didn't have money, so now we have to craft this whole backstory of why there's no money in the future.
Yeah, I wonder.
So what do you think about, like, not knowing what the probe's saying or anything? Like, the mystery. Like, we get nothing of what this probe actually wants. It's all left up to the only people who can communicate with it are the whales. Like, we get nothing. We just assume.
I think it just comes down to how much are you willing to grant the movie in order for the premise to exist. So it's like the fact that it's so, comedy heavy and it's so kind of like not really taking itself that seriously outside of the political messaging, I'm willing to grant that it's this clear plot device of, oh, this comes in and is going to end the world unless you get whales, go do something about it. Because had they tried, I mean, like, we kind of know what, they do kind of explain a little bit when they're theorizing on the ship, when they're like, oh, they went extinct, maybe this thing lost contact, so it's coming to check it out. And it's like, okay, I mean, that's kind of flimsy, but we probably missed one line of dialogue that we're going to get 300 comments about, so.
We got to write down everything that happens in this film.
What about you?
I heard, like, I was doing some research. I heard, like, Leonard Nimoy didn't want it, like, transcribed. They just wanted the mystery of this thing. Like, just, it's more mysterious if we don't know.
Yeah.
And I kind of respect that. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many things are, like, not explained in something, and then when you get the answer, it's not satisfying. And it's like, oh, I wish I just wouldn't have had the answer. You know? Like how Solo got his name. I was shocked at how good William Shatner was at the comedic acting. Like, he had some funny moments in TOS, but, like, in this, he really steps it up, and his comedic timing and tone and delivery is, like, excellent in this movie. What do you think about the character of Jillian? Because I almost like that they didn't go down like the typical love interest storyline with her. Like, they end up not together. she never really even shows any romantic interest in Kirk really that much.
Yeah, no.
And then she just gets taken to the future and gets to do whatever she wants.
Yeah, she's a realistic person who just like has a strong love and admiration for these whales and wants to save them, and is kind of just realistically gets brought into this story because they're like, oh yeah, we got to take the whales. It's like, what do you mean? And then they slowly drag her along the story to where she finally like, oh my god, this is real. You guys are from outer space.
Oh my God!
And she has a good ending, you know. It's like she says like, oh, this is literally my entire life, so she gets to help, you know, in the future.
Yeah, I thought she was really good and didn't take away from any of our characters in the movie that we already love. She wasn't given like so much screen time that I was like, oh, you know, get back to the characters. Like she was just in it a good amount, had a nice little arc. Like it's not like her character goes to a huge transformation, but has a nice little arc. You know, her character starts somewhere and ends up in a better place, and her motivations are clear. And she had some funny moments with Kirk and everything. One of my favorite quotes actually comes from her when they're watching that horrible footage of the whales.
To hunt a species to extinction is not logical.
Whoever said the human race was logical?
Did you know that Janice and Nurse Chapel were in this?
A patron just commented that we missed Janice being in it. I'm guessing at the beginning. I totally missed where they were.
I think I saw them both. They go by command. They're both commanders now.
Okay.
One of the final shots in the movie, like in the final courtroom scene, every original member of TOS plus Chapel and Rand are in one shot, and it's like the only shot where they're all in it.
Wow.
What's up with Chekhov almost dying in this and the Wrath of Khan? You know, two near-death experiences.
He always just feels like a vulnerable character. Even when he died in Spectre of the Gun, I almost believed that they were going to kill him off. You know what I mean? Like he seems like such a vulnerable, like, we have to kill somebody off. I'll kill Chekhov. He's, you know, no, he's the late bloomer.
I wish we had like a funny costume for Spock instead of his robes with just a headband over it. Like we got to see like a cool, maybe a different version. You know, Gangster Spock is one of my favorite.
Just have Spock when they get there to San Francisco, you know, oh, these clothes aren't going to work here, and just like dress them up, do like a dress up gag, you know, where they like go to a store and he's like trying on different clothes, you know.
Do like a montage of him trying on clothes.
Yeah. Like dressed like he's in a punk outfit and like a different out, you know, just like different styles from the 80s. That could have been fun.
Oh, that would have been really fun.
People keep saying, like in our comments and stuff, that everyone's like, oh, you know, they thought every Star Trek movie was the last Star Trek movie. Like, you know, they were never guaranteed to be able to make more because...
You mean Gene Roddenberry didn't have like a hold one of those things at D23 Expo and put up a timeline?
Phase 3?
Phase 3 of Star Trek.
Wait, they were going to call the show Phase 2.
Yeah.
But, you know, if any of the movies had just like flopped, they just probably wouldn't have made another one. You know what I mean? And because they were all so successful, they end up starting, you know, the next generation after this movie. So the timing of it is funny because this movie feels like they knew it was wrapping up this story, even though they do end up continuing with more movies and stuff. But it feels kind of like a natural progression. Like I kind of feel like I'm content leaving these characters for now at where they're at and jumping into this new story because they got the Enterprise back. It's all kind of wrapped up. Of course, I would love to see more from the characters, and I'm gonna love seeing them again in the future. But I don't feel like, oh man, I'm being ripped away from them. Like how when TOS ended, and it's like, well, I guess that's the end.
Yeah, it did feel like a conclusion. Like watching it, it didn't feel like a conclusion at all. It just felt like an odd side quest whale story. But at the end, where Spock has that great scene with his dad. If it ended there, that's fine. I think everyone's in a good place. Not what I expected, but after letting it sit for a bit, because maybe I was expecting like this grand voyage, like where they make multiple stops. Because it's called the Voyage Home. So maybe I'm thinking like they make multiple stops, running into some old friends maybe. Subverted my expectations, but after sitting with it and watching it, I'm like, this is great. This is fun. I'm okay with it. It doesn't need to be... Not everything needs to be this deep, oh my gosh, vengeance, you know, fight action. It's like, let's see the crew have fun. That's why it's different.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I'm really glad that it exists, and it was like this type of movie. Like you, it wasn't the movie that I guessed it was going to be or anything, but that's great. I mean, I think the movie overall does a great job of subverting expectations. It's not my favorite of the movies. My favorite is Search for Spock, but...
Same here.
It
maybe tied with TNP. Sorry, go on.
But, like, getting out of the whole, like, what's my favorite, this one compared to this one, whatever, like all that aside, I like that this movie exists and it is the way that it is, and is in the genre that it is, and just gave me some really good closure in the sense of like finally getting to see something that feels like a TOS adventure but in a movie form.
Like finishing TOS, I knew we were doing the movies, but now that like the 4 movies before Next Gen are done, this actually does feel like an actual, but like a goodbye for a while.
I mean, how do you feel about the movies overall in the sense of like, I feel like we were given throughout all 4 of them, we were given like almost everything I could have asked for, because it's like if in one of the individual movies there isn't something you're looking for, it's in one of these movies. Like they're all so different that I feel like it fulfills almost anything you'd be looking for.
Yeah, everything we asked for, I think we got eventually in one of them. Whether it's Kirk in a fight scene again, whether it's Bones and Spock, bickering but still being friends with each other, whether it's everyone getting their own thing to do. Like this one specifically gave us that. And it's nice to get all those fan service, those things that you want out of these films, not all in the same one, but also each one giving you things you didn't expect.
They almost all make them all better. You know what I mean? Because it's like any shortcoming I have with one of the movies, it's just like, oh, well, I got that in this movie. So it's like, that's okay that it's not. It's okay that there's not really any character stuff in TMP because I have it in Searcher Spock and in this one. And same goes for all 4 of the films. So I genuinely like all 4 of these movies, and I'm shocked by that. And like, because we always have low expectations, try to set the bar low. Like, I definitely like some more than others, but all 4 of these movies I'm happy to own and I'm happy to watch again if I ever want to. None of them are like the black sheep, like, ooh, I don't want to watch that one. We will eventually get there with Star Trek. Something's going to happen where we're going to go, well, there's Assignment Earth, but but outside of that, like,
The one where they get old.
the years, yeah. But those are TV episodes, like whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's true. I think what these sequels did, or these movies did, they did what sequels should be, and that's be different, not be the same thing, or not be the same thing but more, or same thing but bigger. It's like they're all very different. I don't know. I don't want to let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to, because this is it. Channel's done.
Yeah. But we do have to let it go. And you know what, guys? This whole time, everything we've watched Star Trek-wise up to this point, you want to grab that box set? Everything has been on this box set right here. And there's still more on here. There's still 2 more movies. There's actually a really cool documentary on here that I want to watch one day. But
We should react to that.
yeah, but there's still more movies in everybody. But you know what, guys? It's finally time. This just arrived today. Jumping into the Next Generation. We're going to be watching it here on Blu-ray, the complete series. So if you're ever wondering where or what format or how we're watching the show, this is what we're watching on. I literally opened this in the middle of this recording, so I haven't looked through this or anything. Obviously not going to look too deep because I don't want to see anything ahead of time. But really excited to get started. And, don't worry, guys. We're not going to watch a whole season of another TV show before we get started with this. The Next Generation, by the time this is posted, the Next Generation reactions, the first batch of them are already up on our Patreon, full uncut, and they're going to start hitting the YouTube channel next week. So we're going to be jumping right into them, and I hope it's a great time. We'll see.
Yeah. Can I keep this?
Absolutely not. Give me that.
And you know what? I figured since it is spooky season, we should do something pretty scary. We should watch the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, which many people have told us it's not as good as the later seasons, which means we're going to love it.